The sun was slipping low behind the far mesas when the wagon train crossed the wide-open stretch of desert, where the world felt too quiet for comfort. Elena Ward sat on the wooden bench holding the reins tightly as the horses trotted forward with slow, tired steps. Her father had warned her that the frontier demanded patience and grit, yet nothing prepared her for the uneasy tension she felt that evening. The land stretched out in all directions, silent and still, with only the soft brush of wind stirring the sage. In the distance a hawk circled lazily as if watching the travelers with curious interest. Elena tried to shake the feeling that something was wrong, but the air tasted different that day, heavy, as if danger waited just out of sight. Her younger brother, Daniel, rode ahead, checking the path that led between two low ridges. Dust clung to his coat and hat, but he waved back at Elena with a cheerful grin. She forced herself to smile, though worry churned inside her. Her father walked beside the lead wagon, inspecting the wheels and listening for any sound that might hint at a hidden threat. Other families followed close behind, each wagon piled high with supplies, cloth, tools, and dreams of new land. Elena hoped they would reach Fort Mason before nightfall because she knew nothing good happened on the plains after dark. The wagon wheels creaked and groaned as they dipped into a shallow ravine lined with dry brush. That was when the horses suddenly tensed, their ears pricking sharply. Elena opened her mouth to call out, but the warning came too late. A sharp cry shattered the silence. It echoed across the canyon like the scream of a hawk diving for its prey. Then another cry rose, then another, until the air vibrated with the fierce chorus of Apache warriors charging down from the ridges. Chaos exploded in an instant. Horses reared. Men shouted. Children ducked into the wagons. Arrows sliced through the air, landing in the dust with frightening speed. Elena felt her heart slam against her ribs as she jumped from the wagon, trying to reach her father. Smoke and dust clouded her vision. A gunshot cracked loud in her ears. She stumbled over a fallen crate and dropped to the ground just as another arrow whistled past where her head had been. Apache riders thundered into the ravine, their horses swift and sure-footed. Faces painted with streaks of red and black flashed past her. Warriors shouted orders in a language she did not understand. Fear coursed through her like icy water. She crawled toward a large rock, hoping to hide, but a shadow loomed over her before she could move another inch. A strong arm swept down and lifted her off the ground with brutal ease. She screamed and kicked, but her attacker barely reacted as he hauled her onto his horse. The warrior who took her rode with fierce confidence. His chest pressed against her back as he guided the horse through the chaos. She continued to struggle, but he held her firm with one powerful arm wrapped around her waist. He did not strike her. He did not curse her. He simply carried her away from the trail of dust and screams and smoke until the sounds of the battle faded behind them. When the horse slowed, Elena felt her pulse hammering in her throat. She dared to glance up at the warrior. His face was strong and sharp, with high cheekbones and a jaw shaped like stone carved by endless wind. His hair hung loose and wild down his back. His eyes were dark and deep, and she sensed something inside them that frightened her. Not cruelty, not bloodlust. Something quieter, something hidden. He looked down at her with unreadable calm and said in rough English, "You do not die today." His voice surprised her. It was deep, steady, and controlled. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened slightly and he shook his head. No escape. Too far. Too lost. She swallowed hard, trying to find words, though fear made her throat dry. "Where are you taking me?" The warrior did not answer for a long moment. Then he said, "Home." The word chilled her more than the desert wind. They rode a long distance through rising terrain until they reached a hidden valley where an Apache camp stood between high cliffs. Fires burned low. Women ground maize and tended cooking pots. Children stopped their play to stare at the strange pale girl being led into the center. Elena trembled as she was lowered from the horse, but the warrior steadied her with a firm hand, making sure she did not fall. He faced her then with the posture of a man used to command. "I am Taza, son of Nanton, chief of the White Mountain Apache. I keep what I take, but I do not break my word." She clung to what courage she had left. "Why me?" she asked in a voice barely above a whisper. Taza's expression did not change. "Your people cross our land without respect. There are those who want war. I want something else." He paused, his gaze shifting as if choosing his words carefully. "You live. You stay. You help me show my people that peace is not weakness." Elena stared at him, stunned by the contradiction in his actions. He had dragged her from her family at the point of a spear, yet he spoke of peace. She did not know whether to trust him or fear him more. Tiazia stepped closer. "I promised you life. I keep that promise." A strange heaviness settled in the air. Elena realized something troubled him, something deeper than any tribal conflict. He watched her with a look he tried to hide, a look of conflict that seemed to war with itself. She sensed he had not expected to feel anything for her beyond duty. She also sensed that he was fighting something powerful inside himself, something he did not want to name. Night settled over the camp. Elena sat near a fire wrapped in a thin blanket. She watched the flicker of flames dance across Taza's face as he spoke quietly with other warriors. He glanced her way more than once, his expression tight with unspoken turmoil. When their eyes met, she felt a chill and a strange warmth at the same time. He feared something. She did not know what. But she knew one thing with certainty. The night he captured her was the night both their lives began to change in ways neither could escape. Morning sunlight crept across the Apache camp like a slow-moving river, brushing softly against every lodge, every horse, and every sleeping warrior. Elena Ward opened her eyes to the unfamiliar sounds of pounding maize, scraping hides, and the sharp rhythmic chopping of wood. She sat up slowly, feeling the stiffness in her limbs from the hard ground. For a moment she hoped she had dreamed everything, but when she looked around, the truth returned like a weight settling on her shoulders. She was deep in Apache land, surrounded by people who saw her as an outsider, maybe even an enemy. A shadow fell over her and she stiffened, but it was only Taza carrying a wooden bowl of food. He set it beside her without a word. His movements were steady and controlled, like a man who had spent years in command of himself. Elena hesitated, then picked up the bowl. Warm steam rose from it, filling the air with earthy scent. Hunger overcame fear, and she took a cautious sip. It tasted simple but comforting. She looked up at Taza, unsure if she should thank him, but he walked away before she could speak. In the following days, Elena learned the rhythm of the camp, though she never felt truly part of it. Women watched her carefully, but without cruelty. Some offered guidance through gestures, showing her how to grind corn, or carry water, or tie bundles of wood. A young girl named Noya spoke just enough English to explain certain tasks. Noya's shy smile and gentle nature eased some of Elena's loneliness. Through her, Elena learned that the Apache valued strength and loyalty above all, and that every person, even children, had a role that kept the tribe alive. Every morning, Taza left camp to patrol the land. Elena noticed he always looked at her before riding out, as if making sure she was safe. He never smiled, but she sensed something in his gaze, a silent reminder of the promise he had made during her capture. At night he returned tired, dusty, and withdrawn. He spoke little, but watched her with an intensity she struggled to understand. It was not anger, not greed, not cruelty. It felt more like a question he was afraid to ask. One afternoon, while carrying a heavy water pot, Elena tripped on a loose stone that rolled under her foot. The pot shattered on impact, sending shards scattering across the ground. She gasped and braced herself, expecting anger or scolding from the watching women. Instead, she heard steady footsteps approaching. Taza knelt beside her and gently lifted the largest piece of the pot. "You are not hurt," he asked with a voice surprisingly soft for a warrior. No, she whispered, though her hands trembled with embarrassment. Taza set the broken piece aside. A pot is nothing, he said. We make more, but your life cannot be replaced. The calm certainty in his tone made heat rise in her cheeks. She nodded quietly, and he stood watching her a moment longer before walking away. Elena realized something then. Taza treated her with responsibility, but also with a respect she did not expect. He protected her not as a possession, but as a promise he refused to break. And though she tried to deny it, she found herself noticing the strength in his shoulders, the steady way he moved, the quiet discipline that marked everything he did. But the camp was not without danger. Some warriors grumbled whenever they saw her. They spoke in voices laced with suspicion and resentment. Elena could not understand their words, but she understood their tones. They saw her as trouble waiting to happen, a spark that could ignite a war between their people and hers. She stayed, close to Noya and the older women who seemed less hostile, but she never felt completely safe unless Taza was nearby. One evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, Elena tended to one of the horses, a gentle Dunmare with kind eyes. The calm moment shattered when she heard a soft rattling behind her. She turned and froze. A rattlesnake coiled inches away, ready to strike. Her breath caught in her throat. She dared not move. Terror rooted her to the ground. Before she could cry out, Taza appeared. He moved so quickly she barely saw him draw his knife. The blade flashed once, then the rattling fell silent. Taza grabbed her shoulders, pulling her back from the danger. His breath carried the heat of adrenaline as he asked, "Are you harmed?" She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "No, I didn't see it." "You must learn to see everything in this land," he said, though his voice held no anger, only concern. "The desert shows no mercy to the distracted." He paused, then added more quietly, "But I will always come when you need help." The words stirred something inside her, something that felt like warmth spreading through her chest. She whispered, "You already have." For a brief moment their eyes met, and the connection between them felt strong enough to silence the whole world. Then Taza stepped back quickly, breaking the moment as if the closeness had startled him. He sheathed his knife, turned away, and walked off with shoulders tense like a man torn between duty and emotion. That night Elena saw him sitting alone on a ridge overlooking the dark valley. A fire burned behind him, but he sat apart from everyone, with the moon above him casting silver light across his troubled expression. She watched him from a distance, understanding for the first time that he carried battles inside him she could not yet name. He wanted to protect her, she knew that. But he feared something else, something deeper, something tied to the strange connection growing between them. Over the next week, Elena grew stronger. She learned to grind corn without spilling it and to carry water without dropping the pot. She learned how to read the land, watching for tracks and sudden changes in the wind. She learned that silence could be a language all its own. And she learned that Taza's presence brought her a sense of safety even when they did not speak. One day he approached her in the afternoon shade. "You are learning," he said. His voice was low, almost approving. Elena smiled faintly. "I am trying." He looked at her for a long moment. "The others watch you. Some fear you." "Some fear what I feel." The words slipped out before he could stop them. His jaw tightened immediately, as if he regretted speaking so honestly. Elena's heart thudded hard. "And what is it you feel?" she asked softly. Taza looked away toward the mountains, his profile sharp against the sky. "Something I should not," he said. His voice carried weight like a man fighting a battle no one else could see. She did not push him for more. She knew his struggle was not simple. He was a warrior raised to honor his tribe above all. She was a settler woman brought into his world by violence and fate. Every step closer to her threatened to pull him away from everything he had been taught to protect. Yet the distance between them felt thinner each day, like a barrier. slowly wearing away under the desert wind. That night, as she lay beneath the lodge blankets, Elena realized something with startling clarity. She trusted Taza more deeply than she had trusted any strange man before. And trust was not born from fear or from obligation. It was born from the way he looked at her with conflicted longing, the way he saved her from danger without hesitation, the way he spoke with truth even when it cost him comfort. She knew then that her heart was beginning to shift in ways she could not stop. She was falling towards something wild and forbidden, something she feared to admit, something he feared to feel. The desert morning rose like a slow-burning flame over the horizon, painting the sky in pale gold as Taza guided his horse along the rocky ridge overlooking the Apache Valley. Elena rode behind him, her hands gripping the saddle, the wind whipping strands of her hair across her face. For days she had felt the tension in the air, an uneasiness in the tribe, a restlessness in Taza's gaze, a heaviness in the way the warriors held their weapons close. Something was coming, something neither of them could outrun. The trouble began with whispers. Elena had overheard two young women talking as they pounded May's voices tight with worry, glancing over shoulders. She understood only fragments, but the fear was clear. A rival faction led by an outlaw Apache named Cade was moving closer. Cade held no respect for peace, no patience for treaties, no hesitation in spilling blood. If he learned that Taza had taken a white woman alive, not for ransom, not for trade, but under a promise, he would see it as betrayal. And betrayal was something Cade punished with death. More frightening still were the settlers across the plains. Word had spread that a settler woman had been taken, and groups of angry men were gathering armed, suspicious, and unwilling to believe she might still be alive. They believed no Apache would keep a captive breathing unless for a purpose darker than death. Rumors became fire, fire became fury, and that fury rolled across the land like a storm seeking a place to break. Taza sensed the danger long before anyone said it aloud. He had grown quiet, watchful, always scanning the horizon, always keeping Elena near. She didn't understand at first why he insisted she accompany him everywhere, whether he was checking water lines, visiting the horse camps, or meeting with elders. But she knew now. She was the tinder, and both sides were dry grass ready to ignite. That morning, the truth finally reached them. A scout galloped into camp, his horse lathered in sweat. He dismounted with breathless urgency. "Cade rides with 10 warriors," he said. "They follow the river trail. And the settlers, they are near the canyon mouth. Too close." Elena felt cold tremors race through her body. "They're coming for me," she whispered. Taza turned toward her then, his dark hair lifting in the wind, the rising sun etching his features into something fierce and unyielding. "No," he said. "They are coming for war. You are only the reason they will give." Before she could respond, he ordered a horse to be saddled and supplies gathered. His movements were sharp, decisive, swallowing no time in hesitation. The chief objected, insisting Elena should remain under guard in the heart of the village, but Taza shook his head. "They will look for her here first," Taza said. "Cade knows how we protect our weaknesses." Elena swallowed. "And I'm a weakness?" Taza paused, eyes softening for just an instant. "You are under my oath. That makes you mine to guard. If Cade takes you, the treaty ends. If the settlers find you here, they will burn the valley. I will take you far from both, somewhere they cannot follow." The chief studied him, then nodded reluctantly. "Go, but Taza, if you fall alone." Taza accepted the burden without flinching. He helped Elena mount the second horse, tightening the strap with steady hands. His closeness made her heart beat a little faster. The air between them had grown charged over the past nights, filled with glances neither dared hold too long and emotions neither dared speak. She had begun to trust him not because he was her captor, but because he had become her shield, her teacher, her strange and silent companion. And sometimes, when he looked at her, she saw something burning in him, something he fought every moment to push down. They rode out of the valley at a swift pace, following a narrow trail through red cliffs lined with shadows. The silence between them was heavy, but not with fear alone. Elena finally found the courage to break it. "Taza," she said softly, "why are you risking so much for me?" He kept his eyes forward. "Because I promised to keep you alive." "There is more," she insisted. "I'm not blind." His jaw tightened, but he didn't answer. They traveled until the sun climbed high. The desert shimmered in heat, the earth cracked beneath their horses' hooves. Taza stopped only once, in a dry wash where a shallow stream trickled over pebbles. As the horses drank, he walked the perimeter, scanning tracks in the dust. Elena stepped toward him. "Are they close?" He didn't look up. "Cade passes here. Not today, not yesterday. But soon." "Too soon." "What about the settlers?" "They move slower. But they do not stop." He turned to her then, expression hardening. "If they find me with you, they will shoot first, ask questions later. They will not listen. Will your people fight Cade?" "Yes," Taza said quietly. "And many will die." The thought struck her like a blade. "I never wanted any of this," she whispered. "No one ever wants war," he said. For a moment, they stood inches apart, the silence around them thick with unspoken meaning. Elena didn't know when it happened, but she no longer feared him the way she once had. She felt safer with him than she had ever felt with her own camp's guards. And though she tried to ignore it, something warmer than gratitude pulsed through her whenever his eyes lingered on her. Before either of them could speak, a distant shout cut through the air, a harsh cry carried by wind. Taza's hand flew to his knife. "On the horses, now!" They mounted quickly and darted toward the canyon path. Behind them, hooves slammed against the earth multiple horses, gaining speed. Elena risked a glance back and saw dust rising, dark shapes appearing through the haze. "Cade?" she gasped. Taza nodded once, grim and sharp. "Hold tight." The chase thundered across the plains. Arrows whistled past, slicing the air near Elena's face. She ducked, clinging to her horse's mane. Taza veered sharply, leading them into a maze of rocky spires where only skillful riders could follow. "Cade wants you alive," Taza called over the wind. "But he will kill me to take you." "Why?" She cried out. "Because he thinks I desire you," Taza said, and the pain in his voice startled her. "And desire makes a warrior weak." The words struck her deeper than the fear around them. She tried to respond, but an arrow grazed her arm, drawing a sharp cry. Taza wheeled his horse around without hesitation, positioning himself between her and the attackers. He drew his bow, released 2 arrows in rapid succession, and one of Cade's riders tumbled into the dust. The canyon walls narrowed. Taza guided their horses into a hidden crevice barely wide enough to squeeze through. The world fell into shadows, cool and echoing. The enemy thunder faded behind the rock, losing their trail. They were alone again. Elena dismounted shakily. Blood trickled down her arm, but she barely felt it. All she could see was Taza, breathing hard, eyes dark with the fire of battle and something else, something fierce and wounded. He stepped toward her, inspecting her injury. His fingers brushed her skin gently, almost reverently. "You could have died," he said in a low voice. "But I didn't," she whispered. He lifted his gaze to hers. In that shadowed canyon, silence stretched between them thick, heated, dangerous. The desire he feared was no longer hidden. It pulsed in the air, undeniable. "I should not feel this," he murmured. "It breaks every law of my people." "And what about my people?" she breathed. They believe you are a monster. Am I? He asked quietly. She reached for his hand, letting her fingers settle against his calloused palm. No, she said. You're the only one keeping me alive. For a moment, he let his forehead rest against hers, eyes closed, breath trembling like a man fighting himself. Cade will not stop, he said. Neither will your settlers. They will hunt us until one of them wins. Then what do we do? We survive, Taza said, voice soft and fierce. Together. And as the canyon shadows wrapped around them, Elena knew the truth. The danger between them was no longer their greatest threat. The world outside was the enemy. But the bond forming between them, fragile, hidden, powerful, was the only thing that might save them both. The night settled over the desert like a heavy blanket, thick with tension and the scent of smoke drifting from distant campfires. Elena lay awake beside the small flame Taza had built, her mind tangled in fear and questions. After their escape from Cade, they had ridden until exhaustion forced them to halt in a narrow ravine hidden by boulders and thorn brush. Their horses rested nearby, but the stillness in the air told her peace was an illusion. Danger waited on every horizon, Apache rebels on one side, settlers on the other. And somewhere in that tightening circle, she and Taza stood alone, bound. Together not by chains, but by choices neither of them fully understood. Taza sat a few feet away, sharpening his knife, though Elena suspected it was more for focus than necessity. His movements were slow, precise, his expression unreadable. The flickering fire carved shadows across his cheekbones, making him look both older and infinitely more burdened. Ever since the chase through the canyon, something had changed. He had become quieter, more distant, as if wrestling a storm inside himself. Finally, Elena broke the silence. You've barely spoken since we stopped. Taza didn't look up. There is little to say. That's not true, she insisted, sliding closer. Something is bothering you. His hand stilled on the blade. He set the knife aside and lifted his gaze to her, eyes dark with a mixture of conflict and fear. She hadn't seen before not fear for himself, but fear of the choices ahead. Elena, he said slowly, what happened today will not remain hidden. Cade saw us together. He will tell the others what he believes, that I care for you. Too much, that I risked warriors' lives for you. Her heart thudded painfully. You did it to protect me. Not only to protect you, he admitted in a raw whisper, and that is the problem. He stood and paced, the firelight catching on his moccasins as his shadow stretched across the rock wall. In my tribe, he continued, a warrior must put his people above all else. Above hunger, above purring, above personal desire. He paused, drawing a long breath. But today I wanted you safe more than I wanted to defeat Cade, more than I wanted to win honor. Elena felt warmth rise in her chest, a mix of fear, hope, and something deeper. And that's wrong? For a leader, he answered, it is fatal. He lowered himself to sit again, elbows resting on his knees. If I return to the tribe now, they will question every choice I make. They will say I cannot be trusted. Some will challenge me. Some will follow Cade. Others will choose war. And if you don't return? Elena asked softly. He met her gaze. Then they will believe I have betrayed them. The weight of those words settled heavily between them. Elena knew what loyalty meant to Taza. His people were his blood, his identity, his responsibility. He had been raised to protect them, to lead them, to carry their history in every decision he made. But now that duty collided with the promise he had made to her and the feelings neither of them could ignore. Taza, Elena began, placing her hand gently on his. You saved me because you're good, because you keep your word. He shook his head. I saved you because losing you would have broken something in me. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if the confession itself wounded him. I have felt this coming for many days. I fought it. I tried to bury it, but the more I tried, the stronger it became." Her breath caught. "What became stronger?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "My desire for you. My need to protect you. My fear of what that means for my people and for you." The world seemed to still around them. Elena felt her heartbeat echo through her entire body. She reached up and gently touched his cheek, her thumb brushing his jawline. He didn't pull away. "Taza," she whispered, "you haven't done anything wrong." "Maybe not," he said. "But in the eyes of my tribe, desire for a settler woman is treason. And in the eyes of your people, any Apache who shelters a white woman is a criminal." Elena swallowed. "Then where do we belong?" He looked at her with a depth she had never seen before, soft, aching, full of a longing he'd been too afraid to name. "Nowhere," he said. "Not in your world, not in mine." For a moment, despair washed through her. But then determination rose like fire. "Then we'll make our own place." Before he could respond, the distant sound of horses echoed faintly through the canyon. Both of them stiffened, leaning toward the sound, breath held. Taza immediately extinguished the fire, plunging them into darkness. He motioned for silence and crept to the canyon's edge, peering into the night. Elena waited, heart pounding. When he returned, his expression was grim. "Settlers," he murmured. "A scouting group. They are searching the ravines." Her stomach twisted. "Will they find us?" "Not tonight," he said, though his tone carried no certainty. "But they are very close. What do we do?" "We move before dawn." He sat again, though he didn't relax. Elena watched him, seeing the battle. Play across his face, duty against desire, tribe against heart, law against truth. The man who never hesitated now stood on the edge of two worlds, both demanding impossible choices. "Taza," she said quietly, "what if going back isn't possible anymore? What if the only way to save your tribe is to tell them the truth?" "The truth?" He gave a short, humorless laugh. "That I care for you? That I risk lives for you? That I would choose you over their laws? And what if that choice could stop a war?" She countered. He froze. Elena continued, voice steady. "Your people want peace. The settlers want me safe. You could show them that neither side needs to fight." "And they will believe that?" Taza asked bitterly. "Cade would sooner see you dead than accept peace. And the settlers will shoot me before they listen to a single word." "Not if I speak first," Elena said. "Not if they hear it from me." Taza stared at her, jaw tightening. "It is too dangerous." "So is running forever," she replied. He looked away, torn. Elena placed her hand over his again. "You said you made a promise to keep me alive," she whispered. "But I'm not asking you to protect me anymore. I'm asking you to stand with me." Emotion flickered across his eyes, fear, hope, longing, and something like surrender. "Elena." He breathed, her name carried like a prayer. She leaned closer, her voice soft. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, hesitantly, he lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. It was gentle, reverent, filled with the affection he had tried so long to hide. "You give me strength," he whispered, "and fear. More fear than any enemy could bring." She smiled sadly. "Maybe that's what love is," his breath hitched. He closed his eyes, fighting the admission, yet unable to deny it any longer. "It is," he said at last. The confession settled between them like a spark in dry grass, dangerous, powerful, impossible to contain. But neither of them pulled away. The sky darkened above them, and the desert wind carried the scent of danger. From both directions, Apache rebels gathering, settlers closing in. But in the middle of that storm, two people from enemy worlds sat side by side, choosing each other over the lines drawn by blood and history. Taza knew his next decision would shape the fate of his tribe. Elena knew it could mean her life or death. But both knew one truth. Love had already chosen for them, and when dawn came, they would walk into the fire together. The first pale light of dawn crept across the desert, spilling over the canyon walls where Taza and Elena stood beside their horses. Neither had slept. The night had been filled with distant hoofbeats, drifting smoke from the settlers' campfires. Carried by the wind and the restless knowledge that Cade and his rebels gathered somewhere beyond the rocks. The world around them tightened like a noose, but the decision they made before dawn to face everything together held firm between their intertwined hands. Elena adjusted the torn edge of her sleeve where the arrow had grazed her. Taza noticed the movement and gently touched her arm. "Does it still hurt?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "Not as much as everything else." A small, wistful smile touched his lips. "Pain makes warriors of us all." "Then I must be a warrior by now," she whispered. Taza's expression softened, warmed, and shifted with a depth that made her heart tremble. "You are stronger than you know," he said. "Stronger than many warriors I've met." Before she could respond, the distant call of a hawk echoed over the ridge. The sound brought Taza's eyes toward the horizon. "It is time," he said. Elena swallowed hard. "You're sure about this? Returning to your tribe with me?" His jaw set in firm determination. "If we do not confront this now, fear will make choices for us. And fear has shaped too much of this land already." He helped her onto the horse, then swung onto his own. With one last look at their hidden refuge, they rode toward Taza's village, toward the place where their fate would be decided. By midday, the Apache Valley came into view. Smoke rose from scattered fires, and the sound of children playing mixed with the distant clatter of warriors sharpening weapons. A heavy unease hung in the air like the silence before a storm. When the villagers spotted them riding in, heads turned. Some froze, some stepped back. Some whispered Taza's name in worry or accusation, and some, especially the warriors, gripped their spears more tightly. Elena felt dozens of eyes on her. She sat tall, refusing to show fear, though her heart pounded so loudly she wondered if they could hear it. Taza dismounted first. He reached up and helped her down, never breaking contact with her hand. Gasps rippled through the crowd at the sight. Taza's father, the chief, stepped forward. His face bore the deep lines of a leader forced to confront too many hard truths in too few days. "Taza," he said, voice low, "you return at last." "I do," Taza replied, "and I bring the woman under my promise." Murmurs erupted. The chief's gaze flicked to Elena. "You endanger us all by coming here," he said. Elena opened her mouth, but Taza's grip on her hand tightened slightly, a steadying gesture, not a warning. She met his eyes, saw the silent encouragement there, and stepped forward. "No," she said clearly. "I want to help you, all of you." The crowd's reaction was immediate shock, anger, disbelief. Then another voice rang out from the back, sharp and scornful. "Taza has lost his mind." "Cade?" He pushed through the crowd, flanked by his loyal warriors. His eyes gleamed with triumph and hatred as he looked between Taza and Elena. "You choose a settler over your own people," Cade snarled. "You would bring her here to us as if she deserved safety?" "She is under my oath," Taza said, stepping between Cade and Elena. "You know what that means." Cade's lip curled. "Your oath is broken the moment it betrays your blood." The crowd bristled with rising tension, warriors gripping weapons, mothers pulling children back, elders exchanging fearful glances. Elena's chest tightened with dread. This was exactly what they'd feared. A tribe splintered, anger spilling like water from a cracked bowl. "Taza," the chief said, his voice strained, "speak your purpose. Why have you returned?" Taza stood tall, shoulders squared, every inch the warrior he was raised to be. I have returned to stop a war, he said. A war between us and the settlers. A war that will bring death to both sides. He paused. And I have returned because my heart has chosen a path I can no longer hide. The words fell like thunder. You admit it? Cade barked. That you feel something for this woman? That you would choose her over your own? I choose peace, Taza answered, and she chooses it with me. Elena stepped forward then, lifting her chin. Your people want to live. So do mine, but fear is pushing everyone into battle. She spread her hands, palms open, a gesture of honesty. Let me speak to the settlers. Let me show them I am alive. They will listen to me, Cade laughed cruelly. They will shoot you before you cross the river. Not if Taza walks with me, she said. Taza nodded. We will go to them together. If they see her unharmed, they may stand down. The chief hesitated. He looked at his people, at the fear in their eyes, and then at his son. If you go, he said slowly, you may never return. Both sides may kill you. Our deaths will not stop the war, Taza replied, but our truth might. The chief closed his eyes for a moment, as if hearing the echo of something older, something wise and weary from years of conflict. When he looked up again, he nodded once. Go, he said. But go with the strength of our ancestors, Cade erupted. You allow this madness? The chief turned to him sharply. Silence. You bring only fire, Cade. My son brings hope. Cade's rage boiled over. His hand shot out, seizing his spear. Hope dies today. He lunged toward Elena, but Taza was faster. Steel clashed against wood, and the crowd screamed as Taza intercepted the blow. The force sent dust rising around them. They circled, blades flashing in the sun, one fighting to end love, the other fighting to protect it. Elena watched with terror twisting through her chest, but she forced herself not to run, not to scream. Taza said she was strong. She would prove it. The duel was fierce, Cade fueled by hatred, Taza by something deeper. In a swift, decisive movement, Taza disarmed him, sending the spear skidding across the ground. With one final strike, he pinned Cade to the earth, blade at his throat. But he didn't kill him. He stepped back. Death does not build peace, Taza said. Only choices do. The crowd was silent. Even Cade stared up at him in shock, humiliated but alive. And in that moment, the tribe saw who Taza truly was not. A traitor, not a man blinded by forbidden's feeling, but a leader guided by compassion and courage. The settlers gathered near the river, rifles raised, the sheriff at their front. When Taza and Elena approached, hands raised in peace, shouts rose from the crowd. There, it's her. She's alive. Get away from the Indian girl. Elena took a deep breath. Put down your guns, she shouted. Please. The sheriff hesitated. Elena Ward, is that really you? It is, she said. And I am not hurt. Taza protected me. He saved me more times than I can count. A ripple of uncertainty spread among the settlers. Taza stepped forward. We come with no weapons, he said. Only a wish to end this without blood. For a long moment, the settlers wavered. Then the sheriff lowered his rifle. If the girl says she's unharmed, he said slowly, then we stand down. One by one, guns lowered. Hope rose. In the days that followed, a fragile peace formed, whispers of truce replacing whispers of war. Elena remained with the tribe, not as a captive, but as a bridge between two worlds. The settlers began visiting. The valley under white flags, trading goods instead of bullets. Cade's influence withered. Taza's leadership strengthened. And one warm evening, beneath the burnished glow of a desert sunset, Taza took Elena's hands in his. You awakened something in me, he said softly. Something I tried to fear. Something I tried to fight. Elena smiled, tears shining in her eyes. And what is that? Love? He whispered. A love strong enough to end a war. She leaned into him, heart full. Then let it be strong enough to build a life. He pulled her into his arms, and the wind carried their laughter across the valley, a sound brighter than any dawn, more powerful than any oath. The war had ended. But their love? It was just beginning.